right, well, hey, I'm glad you're here this morning. We are in week 3 of our series about cheat codes. And what are cheat codes?
Things that get you past. Yeah, but it's a cheat that gets you past a video game level.
Yes. Is that what you're going to say? Okay. Yeah. How about this? It's a shortcut or a way to level up quicker. It's basically it helps you to win the game faster. And then what did we say is the cheat code for life? You weren't ready for that question, were you? You were ready for the other question. Wisdom. Wisdom is a cheat code for life. And specifically, is there a type of wisdom that's best? Holy Bible wisdom. Yes, spiritual wisdom. We'll call it godly wisdom. How's that? Wisdom straight from the designer, right? And so it's doing what's best for you and the people around you. That is wisdom. And so we've been talking about this the last several weeks. I'm excited to get back into it again this week. But can I just ask you if you can relate with me on something like this? How many of you have been in a situation where your patience is just tested? Every day of your life. Well, you're a teacher, so... every day of your life, there's a specific circumstance or situation that makes you have to be patient or fail at being patient. Perhaps waiting for summer, some of you. Waiting to go outside at school, yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, my mom is like talking with one of her friends, but there's something that I really have to say, and then by the time they're done and I can say what I want to say, like it doesn't even make sense anymore.
Yes. It's so relatable when the adults are talking and you have something to contribute, but they're like, shh, and then by the time it's over, they're like, what do you need? Well, it doesn't make sense now. The conversation's over. Yes, okay. For me, it was looking at the clock slowly move to when the bell's supposed to ring in every single class. Anybody else relate? I absolutely hated, being forced to do things I didn't want to do. I think that's everybody, but specifically, in my mind, I felt like, why do I have to sit here for a whole hour to learn the subject when I could just learn it myself at home? or something, or more accurately, why do I have to sit here and learn this for an hour when I'm never going to use this again in the rest of my life, right? That's what I said a lot. I have since, fully developed my brain. I'm now beyond the age of 25, so I can see clearly why sometimes seemingly busy work, that's the word, busy work, can seem unnecessary, but it is good for character. I'll sound like my mom or dad. It is good for character development. It's good to learn those critical math equations because I don't remember math anymore, but I know that it helped develop a certain part of my brain to be able to think critically, and it's good for you. But at the time, when I was your age, I could not stand school. I wanted out. I wait for that clock to count down, and then I can have my life back, right? That's how I felt every day, and patience was just honestly tested. Now, if you can relate, I want you to turn the person next to you and talk about a time specifically where maybe it was because you wanted to punch your sibling in the face, maybe it was because you're waiting on your parents to stop talking so you can leave and go to lunch, maybe whatever it is, turn to somebody next to you, talk about a time where you struggled with patience. Go. All right. So let's play a little this or that game. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple scenarios, and I want you to tell me which is worse. Okay? So it all has to do with patience and having to wait on something, but I want you to tell me which is worse, okay? Waiting for an Amazon package to arrive or waiting for the Wi-Fi to buffer.
Wi-Fi.
Which is worse? Raise your hand if you say Amazon. Raise your hand if you say the Wi-Fi. Okay, yeah. This is frustrating, I know. Both the things I didn't have to deal with when I was your age, so there. Okay, how about this? Waiting to arrive to your final destination on a road trip. Are we there yet? Or waiting until you're old enough to drive yourself or stay up later or get a cell phone. All representations of freedom, rites of passage. Which is worse? Okay, first one or the second one? Who says the first one with waiting to get to your destination?
Especially when you're driving to Florida.
You're like, it's not bad. I already have a phone. I can just play on my phone. How many of you, it's like waiting to get your driver's license or waiting to get your phone? That one's worse. Okay? All right, how about this one? Waiting for someone to text you back. You know, you just see the little gray bubbles, like, but they haven't responded. Or waiting for school to get out. Whether it's summer break or weekend or the end of the day. It doesn't matter. Just in general. How many would say the first one, which was waiting for someone to text you back? How many of you it's waiting for school to get out? The majority of you. Okay. All right. That must mean either you don't have a phone or you don't have any friends that don't text you back. So you don't struggle with that. All right. What about this one? Waiting for your parents to pick you up after a game or practice or whatever. Or waiting for your parents to be ready to drive you to that party you want to go to or a friend's house. Either way, you're waiting on your parents to either pick you up or take you somewhere. Which is worse? Waiting for them to pick you up after something and you're like sitting out there in front of the door for like half an hour, like, Mom, are you coming? Or is it, Mom, hurry up, I want to go? The second one? Okay. You must not have parents that leave you places or forget about you. That's great. I have had that happen to me before. You can tell me afterwards. Okay, so here's the deal. Waiting is difficult. Patience is a hard thing to learn. I bet some of you are struggling to have patience with some of your teammates or classmates, right? You don't have to name names, but I'm sure that some of you are in that boat. Some of you, maybe you're struggling to be patient with some of the adults in your life. And again, we don't need to name names, but maybe they seem like they're not patient with you, but they demand patience from you. And so that's tiring for your patience. Maybe there's someone in the room who's just struggling with patience with yourself. Maybe you wish yourself were at a better version of yourself than you currently are, and when you think about yourself, you get frustrated with where you're at, and so you don't have a whole lot of patience with yourself. Whereas if somebody else, like a friend of yours, made some of the same mistakes you did, you'd have more patience for them, but for whatever reason, you can't have that for yourself, and that's tough. Maybe you're even struggling with patience with God, where maybe you've prayed for something again and again and again, and it seems like God is silent again and again and again. You wonder what he's thinking. How is he responding to you? And you're honestly struggling with patience with God because of that. And I think the reality is just we all struggle with this in various ways. And as you get older and as your seasons change, you get into different situations, the patience factor is still always a factor. Like, you're going to have to learn how to be patient in any circumstance, because all throughout life there's going to be things that require you to have patience, because you're going to have to share the road with people. You're going to have to wait in lines at stores. You're going to have to, wait for that trip to get here. You're going to have to wait for you to be able to upgrade to the newest whatever. You're going to have to wait for a lot of things all throughout your life. As Christians, we are waiting for Jesus to come back, right? Christians have been waiting for that for 2,000 years, and who knows? Maybe it'll happen today. Maybe it'll happen in another 2,000 years. We don't know. But the point is, we better learn patience. And we better learn what we should be doing while we're being patient. Otherwise, idle hands often cause trouble. When it comes to patience, I think where we look and what we do with ourselves when it's time to be patient, or how we respond to situations that require patience, is incredibly important for our development and for our relationships and for a lot of different areas in life. So we've been looking at some of the words from King who? Solomon, who wrote a lot of what book? Proverbs, yes. And so he wrote down all these sayings of wisdom called Proverbs, and they're in the book of Proverbs. Again, not all of them were written by Solomon, but most of the book of Proverbs is written and attributed to him. And he also wrote things like Ecclesiastes, Songs of Solomon. So he's got a substantial amount of work in our Old Testament, and basically he just passes down this wisdom that he's learned from God in life and gives it to us. And then in Proverbs chapter 19, starting in verse 11, this is what he says. A person's wisdom yields patience. Right. He says, patience is a direct result of what? Wisdom. Have you guys ever thought about it like that? Like, a person's wisdom is what yields patience. Does that mean if I don't have patience, I'm not very wise? It seems like that's what that's saying. A person's wisdom yields patience. And the way you can tell that is if you replace the key words with the opposite word. So a person's foolishness will yield impatience. That's another way you could read that. Fair? A person's wisdom yields patience. It's the ability, again, to know what's best. If you have wisdom, you're gonna know what things are worth stressing about and what things really aren't. What things are worth you getting all worked up about and what things aren't. That is a patience issue, if you think about it. Someone who's wise will know that standing in line at the DMV, waiting to get your driver's license or renew your license plate, which now you can do online, which is a wonderful thing. But for many years, maybe you're waiting in line for lunch in the cafeteria or on your mom to make it, and you're sitting there. A wise person will know my impatience will not speed up the situation at all. Have you noticed that? If you get impatient about something, does that actually speed up the results? Most often it doesn't. And if it does, then you usually earn a bad reputation for yourself because people are bitter towards you for working them up because you were impatient. Make sense? So a person's wisdom will yield patience. And choosing wisdom, you're choosing to have patience. Again, this is different than we typically think about when we think about patience. We usually separate, well, wisdom is one thing, patience is another thing. And yes, but they're also very closely related and sometimes closer related than we realize. So he gives us, let's read the second half of this verse. A person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. So now it seems like this verse is talking about patience with an individual, patience with a person. A person's wisdom yields patience with another person because it is to one's glory to overlook an offense. Now, how many of you have that friend that always does something that drives you nuts? Anybody? How many of you told that friend, dude, that's driving me crazy? Why do you do that? Like when you grow up and you get married and you discover there's habits about the person that you're with that you didn't realize before you started living together because you were married. And habits that, like, they're not deal breakers most of the time. Shouldn't be. But sometimes there's things that happen, like my parents always talked about. My mom was always very frugal. What that means is she never wanted to waste anything. And so that's great. A great concept in life. Unless you're talking about Kleenexes all over the house. Because she would blow her nose and be like, oh, there's still like half a Kleenex I can use later. Would leave it on the counter. And it would drive my dad crazy. It's like, just throw it away. Get another Kleenex if you need one later. And so there's things, you get my point. You have to have patience with people that you love if you want to continue to have a relationship with them, because they're not the only ones that do things that you have to be patient about. You also do things that everybody else around you has to have patience with you about, right? And if you've never had somebody tell you, you got to stop doing that, you're driving me crazy, you don't have any real friends in your life, probably, right? I'm being a little facetious, but people who care about you, spend a lot of time with you, they're going to tell you when you're bothering them because they're not afraid that you're going to like stop being friends with them. They're secure in their friendship with you, in their relationship with you, so they'll tell you, like, hey, stop doing that, right? But there's something to be said about overlooking an offense. Now, there's a lot of different directions we could go with in this. Maybe they did something really bad and really hurtful towards you. And it's going to take forgiveness on your part. We got to bring out the big F word, forgiveness, when it comes to that concept. Because it's more than an overlooking. It's you got to talk it out and you got to like work through it and forgive and move on, right? Some things, you know those things that cause you to lose patience with a person, but really aren't worth like sacrificing the relationship with that person about, right? Sometimes it's to your benefit to overlook an offense. Anybody ever been around somebody that's constantly nitpicking somebody else? Like there's a difference between like, bro, you got to stop doing that, and someone constantly like pointing out when you're doing something wrong, or constantly nagging at you, or constantly saying, you need to change this about yourself, or you need to stop doing this, right? Sometimes Wisdom means you overlook the things that are bothering you because it's not worth making the other person self-conscious about it. It's not worth getting up in arms and impatient with them about. It's not worth ultimately sacrificing portions of your relationship with that person because you're impatient about something. A wise person will overlook an offense. Meaning they're not going to take it so personally. They're not going to make life around them because, when you take offense to something, what you're saying is your actions are messing up my world. Right? And sometimes the mature thing is to say, you know what? My world's just fine as it is. I got lots of things to be thankful for. And they're not going to change my mood and control my emotions because I lack patience. Does that make sense? Sometimes the wise thing to do is to just deal with things without putting your offense on somebody else. Now, this is really difficult to do in general. But in our social media culture, which if you're not on social media, thank God, don't wait as long as possible before you get on it, because it's a cold world out there, let me tell you. But in our society, this is so evident because the offense is what is pushed to the top of the trending. The offense is what is pushed to what everybody vents. Somebody use Facebook. Some people use Facebook as their personal counselor, that they just vent everything out there for the world to see, and it's just not healthy. It is not reflective of a mature person that can self-regulate. I have young kids, right? We just had a baby a year ago, and there's this term called self-regulation that you have to allow them to learn. It means when they're crying, sometimes you have to resist the urge to go and coddle them, and you have to let them figure out soothing methods on their own, right? For a while, that means teaching them things that they can do. Okay, you rub their head, rub their chest, rub their belly, rub their back, or you give them some fingers to suck on. It's okay. Or some people do pacifiers. We've done that with Zeke. But you teach them ways to self-regulate. You assure them you're there, but then you let them self-regulate, right? It's how babies mature and stop crying for every little thing, is they learn, I've got to learn to self-regulate. And so even at a young age, babies learn this. Well, this continues all throughout life. And it continues emotionally. It continues where you have to learn to self-regulate and not base your mood and your emotions off of somebody else's behavior. That's what a mature person do. So a person's wisdom will yield patience. And it is to one's glory to overlook an offense. Here's the bottom line of today's message. Because we kind of say, this is I struggle with I've done this before. I struggle with this, but whatever. But patience matters. Our ability to have patience is directly related and reflective upon the maturity or wisdom that you do or do not have. So patience matters. If and obviously this isn't going to always be easy, right? But if I wanted to help you get started, here's 3 things I would suggest. Is 1, think about who or what in my life makes me impatient. 2, how do I respond when I'm impatient? And 3, how would patience make the situation better? Sometimes you're going to have to work really hard on that last one. But if you can ask yourself these 3 questions whenever you are finding yourself quickly growing impatient, this will help you self-regulate. You ask these 3 questions. Okay, who or what is making me impatient? Okay, what can I do about it? How can I respond? Because I can't change them. I can't change the situation. I can change me. How can I respond right now in this moment? And 3, how would patience make the situation better? Well, 1, it would mean I'm not going to punch that person in the face, so that's good, right? Or maybe, I don't know how me being impatient, or because some of you are internal processors, you're not going to go punch somebody, but you might inside start boiling. So how would patience make my situation better? 1, maybe you will stop boiling because you'll let it go. You'll overlook whatever's going on, and you'll choose to do that rather than responding. And so if you self-regulate with these questions, and you do that repeatedly over time, it will help you to grow in this characteristic that we all desperately need from time to time. We will all learn to be more wise, mature, and patient people if we can learn The simple task of overlooking somebody's offense. Now, is this easy? No. Sometimes it's going to be easier than others. Sometimes it's going to be really difficult. But that's okay. God calls us to a higher standard than the rest of the world. So, as you guys get ready to go to your small groups, what's one area of your life where you struggle with patience? Okay? And if you don't struggle with patience, then be the person that's just a friend to everybody. Because, I was going to say something really facetious, but you get the idea, right? We all struggle with patience. If you don't struggle with anything, you can't think anything right now, then ask God to reveal to you where you are struggling with patience, because this is something that we often sometimes overlook in ourselves, when really we need to pay attention to it so that we can overlook it in others. So, what's an area of your life where you're struggling with patience? I'm going to pray, and then I'll let you guys go to your groups.